This is a Film Stories original podcast. In here. I'm your host, Tony Black, and welcome back to I Want to Believe Minute, where we unpick the second X-Files movie 1 minute at a time. Today, helping me to explore minute 100, running from approximately 99 minutes as the credits roll to 99 minutes 59 seconds and beyond, as we get the X-Files' first and only post-credit sequence. Our fellow X-Cast hosts, Kurt North, Carl Sweeney, and Sarah Blair. Here we are then, guys, the final minute of I Want to Believe Minute, if not quite the final episode of our podcast coverage of it. But yeah, we're here. We're in the credit sequence now, and we're cheating slightly here. We're going to talk about the entirety of the credits, which obviously runs for a few minutes as opposed to 1 minute. But it might be a little bit too insane for us to talk for about another 5 minutes about the credit sequence. So we'll badge it all together in this discussion. But what do we think, guys, about the credits here and how they work and some of the choices here? Visually, to start with, what do we think about the choices made here?
I really like the icy visuals, which of course, when you get into it later, it kind of shifts around a bit, doesn't it, as we lead towards the sort of Easter egg scene later on. But the iciness works well. It's really in keeping with the movie we've just seen. Like musically, I really like the first part of the X-Files theme that we hear. We talked earlier about the harmoniousness of the music at the end of the movie. It has a kind of tranquil feel to it that really fits that scene with Christian well, I think. And then there's a different version of the X-Files theme, isn't it, which has a more driving, propulsive quality to it, which, I don't know,
Is that the Uncle remix?
Yeah. Remix. I don't know, I'm interested what you guys think. I was just wondering, like, is this really fully aligned with the movie we've just seen? Because the film's been quite reflective and meditative, and I don't know, I could have lived with that more harmonious version of the music carrying on for a bit longer, to be honest, but maybe that's just a little quibble, because I still like the remix of the theme.
I would agree. I would have liked to have got to the actual credit roll proper, rather than the official moving credits before you get to obviously the actual visual stuff as well. I think it should have really been a continuation of the kind of the upbeatness of Mark Snow's score, and then into potentially Uncle's one once you get into the proper moving credits. But yeah, it just felt a little bit of a weird kind of thing. It doesn't really kind of comprehend properly for me.
Glad it's not just me then. Yeah.
I mean, they originally wanted it to be, they were planned for it to be an exhibit song, I believe, over the credits. So you would have cut into.
Would it have been
exhibits?
Would it have been an exhibit doing Pussy Pop like I rapped with Clara on an earlier episode? That would have been.
No, it would have been an Alvin Joyner.
Alvin exhibit joiner. Yeah,
just an Alvin Joyner production. So it would have been something completely different.
I sadly not, Carl. I think that would have been amazing, but I think it would have been a song called "Dying to Live," which actually too Fast, Too Furious style, which is on the soundtrack. So you've got obviously on the soundtrack you've got Mark Snow's score, you've got the song that follows after the Uncle remix of the X-Files theme, which is "Broken" by Uncle. And then you've got "Dying to Live" by Exhibit, which of all the I can't remember that song. I don't know if you guys remember it.
Well, I'm looking at.
I think I did have the soundtrack.
I'm looking at the lyrics right now. I don't know what the melody is like, but it's like, your head popped like JFK, like a plot by the CIA. We ain't dying from the KKK. Ooh. When the AK spray to say "Hey, baby." So, some good rhymes there. Yeah, I don't.
I'm not laughing at the song. I'm laughing at your version of it.
We've got another. I'm looking for a man in finance.
It does have, just scrolling down the lyrics, when you get to the chorus, it does have like a Christian element to it, because it's like, now if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. So potentially it would have been quite, in keeping with what's going on around it. So Did they say on the commentary, Tony, did you say why they didn't put that in the end?
No, they didn't elaborate on that. They just said eventually it just went on the soundtrack. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe again they thought it didn't tonally fit, in the set. And I might defend the exhibit, the uncle choice, in the sense of that if the film has ended on a maybe a quieter, rousing, theme, in the idea that they're at peace and they've achieved something by the end. Maybe that's the idea why it's a bit more of a propulsive theme, with the X-Files, as opposed to something a little bit more melodic and thoughtful. Maybe that was the thought process, that he wanted people to walk out of the cinema feeling a little bit more uplifted in what had been otherwise a pretty grim and dour story for an hour and a half. I don't know why, but it does have a bit of a beat behind it, doesn't it, that uncle theme? So I quite like it, actually. I think it works. I think it works quite well. What about Broken, though? What about that song? For me, I don't think it's any Walking After You by the Foo Fighters, which I still love. I still think that's a great song that you get on the Fight the Future.
The Walking After You is a completely different version to the original Foo Fighters version as well. So I actually really like the X-Files version more than the actual original.
It's hard to beat that soundtrack, though. That soundtrack is legend.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how to... I only had a quick glance down the lyrics of that song, but I was trying to work out how it fit in with Mulder and Scully, because it talks about, we're miles adrift, we're inches away. And, I was trying to wonder, is that relevant to them now? They're adrift in the ocean when we last see them in the post-credits scene, or in the mid-credits scene. But they're right there together. I think that's the point, isn't it? They've been left together as a result of this movie. They're not apart anymore. I don't know. I quite like the song. Yeah, I was wondering, how does it fit, though?
I think it fits more in with their, when they're kind of questioning each other, and Scully is telling Mulder, she can't follow him into the darkness, emotionally, and they're miles apart, even though they are physically together, I guess,
Yeah, that's a good way to read it, yeah.
So I think it does fit with the theme of the movie and things that happened in the movie, even if it's not where we left them.
And also maybe the idea that they're always inches away from each other, even when they are miles apart, deep down, that there is that constancy about them both. So yeah, I think your interpretation works really well there, Sarah. I think it's just underscoring that, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's quite a nice song. It's not I don't think it's brilliant. I don't think it's necessarily the most memorable song ever, but it works okay. It works okay. And we've talked, haven't we, before about how good Mark Snow's score generally for this film is. Would we still agree by the end? Do we still feel like... is this a better overall score by Mark Snow, would you say, just while we're on this, talking about music, than Fight the Future is? Or is it roughly the same? What do you guys think?
Oh, that's a good question. I do think the score does take this film up a notch. When we think about some of those moments that we've been discussing in recent minutes, whether it's Mulder and Scully outside the house or whether it's Scully about to perform the surgery on Christian, I do think that as much as the acting is good and, like we said with Scully walking the gauntlet into the operating room, it's visually strong. And I think the music is an additional element there that really sort of adds to it as well. It's been a while since I've seen Fight the Future. My instinct is to say I like this actually maybe a tad better, but I don't know. They're so different, aren't they?
Yeah.
The movies are so different, and what the music needs to do is so different. But it's a strange comparison in some ways.
You've got that propulsiveness of Fight the Future, haven't you? Where, the one that instantly jumps out to me is the Knight Rider scene, which I always think of it as the Knight Rider scene when they're having to choose left or right, and then they drive into the desert. I don't know. It's just one of those things. But the music on that is a great theme score of the movie version of the score. And there's a lot of, as I say, propulsiveness about Fight the Future, whereas this one's more emotionally attached to the film itself. And so I think, for me, Home Again is the song that actually really drives it home. And the minutes I did in, which I said was kind of very similar to almost the procedural element that I spoke to with John Kenneth Muir with, that score there was just emotionally so wrought, and it was just incredible. So I think this this score is probably better overall. I think I did listen to this score more often than I did the Fight the Future score as well. You know, I mean, out of scores, I'm not like a massive score listener, but, you know, Jurassic Park is a CD that I listened to a lot in the early 90s, and I think I think the I Want to Believe score in 2008, I probably listened to that quite a bit. So I think, from listens alone, definitely I think this score is probably better.
I think that's a testament to Mark Snow, and how well he can interpret the difference, because I can't say that I like one more or less than the other, or one is better or worse than the other.
Yeah.
I think that they're two very, very different films, and he recognizes what each one needs and what highlights everything in each film, because, you know, Rob Bowman has these sweeping, grand, you know, summer blockbuster shots, and Mark Snow has the music to match that. And then, you know, Chris Carter has, you know, the I Want to Believe is more intimate and more personal, and he matches that too, which I think is, you know, he's just very talented. Recognizes that.
Yeah, I think you're so right there, Sarah. Actually, I think that's a great way of putting it. And I think, in a way, I feel like the Fight the Future score was slightly diluted over subsequent seasons, because they just kept using bits of it in episodes. You know, half of Biogenesis is Fight the Future, you know, just reworked in terms of the score. You know, episodes like that. And I got a bit like, oh, you know, you're diluting this a little bit. Whereas you don't get that with I Want to Believe. This is, for obvious reasons, you know, the TV show wasn't on. And they probably would have used it again. If the TV show had still been on or whatever, they probably still would have used it.
Well, apart from the forehead sweat example I mentioned earlier, where it comes in the end of forehead sweat. But I can't think of any other examples, Kurt. Can you? I don't think they do it elsewhere, do they?
It was the reverse. They used Fight the Future score music in season 5 of the X-Files. Like there's the one with Skinner in SR819.
That's
really frustrating.
That's season 6.
Oh,
though,
sorry,
isn't it?
season 6.
That's
sorry,
after.
Yeah, but they do it in season 5 though. At some point, I'm sure they do. But SR819 reuses the score.
Oh, maybe.
Isn't it when the office?
Yeah,
gets
no,
burned?
exactly. Yeah.
And that's like the end of season 5, right?
Oh, it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when the office gets burned and they pull back, because that always bugs me too.
Yeah, those are the two Fight the Future scores that jump out at me. It's definitely SR819 and obviously the end,
Yeah, but they don't do it as much in the revival. That's something to keep an eye out, guys, for the revival. See if you can spot any Fight the Future music, I Want to Believe music in there, because I'd be interested if there is, and we didn't catch that. But yeah, very good score, very good credit sequence. One that kept changing a lot, apparently. Chris Carter says in the commentary. Doesn't elaborate on why, but it was very up to the last minute in terms of the way the credits were presented. And you know, he makes the point that loads of people who worked on the TV shows X-Files and Millennium come back for the movie in various small to large, you know, capacities, etc. But before we finish, let's talk about the post-credits scene then, the infamous, which we've alluded to a couple of times in the run-up to this.
Just before we do that, can I mention one thing about the credits which I've never noticed before? And some people are going to
go on then.
People are going to go, oh, well, we knew that. I didn't realise that Fiona Vroom was the stand-in for Scully.
Oh, yeah. Who goes on to be in Nothing Lasts Forever, right?
Yeah, and My Struggle 3.
My Struggle 3.
Yeah, that's Cassandra.
And My Struggle 3 is Cassandra Spender. Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
No, I didn't first time round. Good spot. But let's talk about the sequence then in the boat. So, I mean, it's obviously... Carter talks about how, just on a visual level, that they wanted to get David and Gillian out somewhere like Hawaii or wherever to film it properly, but they couldn't do it for whatever reason, money probably. So it's essentially CGI, or it's essentially, you know, digitally created. And he adds that it looks better on DVD thanks to tinkering that Matt Beck did. Than it did in the theatrical version. Now, I can't remember how it looked theatrically because I haven't seen this theatrically since it first came out. And there's a chance, given I was going out on the pop that night, which I talked about right at the very beginning, I didn't watch all to the way to the end. I might not have seen this until until it came out and I bought it on DVD, actually. It's quite possible. But I don't know if you guys could have ever been able to pass any difference. But what do you think on a visual level about how this looks. But before we talk about the actual meaning, what do you think visually?
It does have a strange artificial quality to it, doesn't it? I think. So if it looks better on the home release, it must have looked really bad on the theatrical release because it still doesn't look great in that respect. But I seem to remember that I knew about this going into the movie in 2008, that whether I'd read it in a review or something, that there's something in the credits to stick around for. I definitely remember sitting there and waiting for this, and at the time being a bit nonplussed by it, to be fair. I don't know what you guys felt, but yeah, no, I definitely did sit through the credits for this, though, on that on initial release.
Yeah, I was the same. I have this vague recollection of staying to see it, so I must have known it was there, because I don't think I would have. This is well before Marvel's time, and I know there was obviously post-credit scenes and a lot of things, but I would have known about this going in, because I did feel like I need to watch this, and I kind of half remembered like sitting there going, there's something on at the end, I need to watch it. So I think it was pushed a bit. And without going into detail, because we'll go into detail in a minute, I thought it was fine. But it wasn't anything astounding.
Yeah. I mean, I watched and stayed, of course, and I just remember being excited that Mulder and Scully were at the beach and having fun together. Like, it's just like, finally they get a vacation. I was just delighted and happy that they were able to have that moment.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? I mean, it is a nice. I agree. Especially with that retrospect, and it is at least seeded in that final scene, as we've talked about, and Mulder talks about. Let's go away. Let's have a holiday. But it is odd. Like,
I think what makes it odd is the breaking the fourth wall when they look up at the camera and wave to everybody.
Yeah,
I think if they hadn't done that, I think it would fit better in the world. And it was almost kind of like, I think I remember being like, are they saying goodbye? And like feeling a really final moment. And it was very bittersweet because I was happy, but also it
felt to me like it was a thankful, thank you everyone.
Yeah.
We've got the second movie, weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
If there's more, great. If there's not, this is kind of a good ending for you.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me.
Sailing off into the sunset. Yeah. Almost literally.
The way I took it on the most recent viewing was like, because you sort of see that they're helicopters, don't you? Because you sort of see the blade going around and you see the shadow. So, like, is this a visual representation of, they're talking about the darkness can try to find us. Are these helicopters the darkness looking for them? And maybe the fact that they're waving is a sign that they're in a place now where they can stop the darkness affecting them in quite the same way, at least for now. But I found it a curious one when I first saw it, and I know people talk about, is this canonical or not? But like back in 2008, I don't think I'd heard the word canon in that sense, and I just thought of it as a weird little bonus thing. Yeah, kind of strange, kind of odd, like you say, Tony. It's a weird one.
I don't see why it wouldn't be canonical, really. Even if you really want to go there, like, you know what I mean. I don't see why it couldn't be.
They wave at a camera.
They're together.
Tony, they wave at a camera of a helicopter that's flying around. Right. If they were trying to like run away from the helicopter, then it's canonical. But at the moment, they wave at a camera.
Well, maybe they're waving at the helicopter. Maybe someone's on the maybe Skinner's on the helicopter. And he's waving down at them. They're waving back at him.
Imagine that.
He's going to repel out.
He's going to do what's is it? Celebrity Get Me Out of Here, where they're going to jump out the helicopter. Yeah, they've got to abseil. He's going to dive in, and he's just having a bit of a party with them. He's going to the island to have a bit of a partying session with them.
Could be.
Maybe it's Father
like the end of
who's there. Coming to argue with Scully a bit more. Yeah.
It could be like the end of the In-Betweeners movie. I don't know if you guys remember the In-Betweeners, but you don't see Greg Davies all the way through of that film, and then at the very end of the post-credit sequence, he's on a moped in the middle of Magaluf with his shirt off, and you just see him partying. It's that, but with Skinner.
It's like the precursor to Where the Hell's Reggie?
Yeah.
That's exactly what that is.
Yeah, it's Reggie. Reggie's on the helicopter. Yeah,
Reggie's gone looking for them.
It's Phoebe Green. Yeah.
That's good. Do you know what? I tell you what, right? If they ever do reboot this, right? I bet you Phoebe Green will be in a reboot, you know. I could well imagine that, couldn't you? Like some sort of messed up love triangle.
And we could see them atop Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's tombstone. That could be like a romantic scene in a prequel or something, a prequel episode.
Can just picture how many listeners now are throwing their phones at the nearest wall at hearing this.
I mean, you're lucky I'm not.
Anyway,
I can't break my computer. I need it, but
you would if you could.
I would.
Right. Anyway, let's on that bombshell. Let's bring the actual minute explorations to a close because that's it. The movie's over. However, we are not done. To be fair, we're going to come back for one final conversation about I Want to Believe, and many of you out there on the basement have given us some fantastic impressions of the film and a little bit about the podcast themselves. So we're going to come back and talk about that and reflect on our journey before we go back into normal Xcast coverage and then build up towards season 10. So don't go away, guys. We'll be back for one more episode, but until then, as always, trust no one.